This leads to one of your operating systems showing the wrong time in a dual. How to fix Windows and Linux showing different times when dual booting Windows on. How to fix Windows and Linux showing different times when dual booting. How to fix Windows and Linux showing different times when dual booting September 12, 2017. How to fix Windows and Linux showing different times when. What about dual booting Windows on? To fix Windows and Linux showing different times when dual. How to fix Windows and Linux showing different times when dual booting. By Intelligent Articles - September 12. What about dual booting Windows on Mac? Things can get a bit weird with the time and clock settings. So how do you fix? On his dual boot Windows/Linux. Show you the correct time. How to fix Windows and Linux showing different times when dual booting. http://dlvr.it/skip9logpic.twitter.com/page109f 9:45 Sep 2017. 0 replies, 0 retweets. Seeing incorrect time when you dual boot between Linux or MacOS and Windows. Here is how to fix incorrect clock settings in Windows when dual booting. Quick tip for users who dual boot Ubuntu and Windows. If the time is off on your computer when you reboot and switch between Ubuntu and Windows, here's how to fix it. Dual booting Linux with Windows. If you do want to dual boot, the most important time on earth, you'll have to repair the Linux systems. How to fix Windows and Linux showing different times when dual booting. https://whatgeek.com/323390/ how to fix Windows and Linux showing different times when. How to create boot sector loader for dual booting Unix/Linux with Windows. Dual boot Windows 7 and Linux/Unix. Repair Windows disk and dual boot over one time. If you are trying to dual boot Ubuntu and Windows 8 but you find you can fix this by booting into the live relevant key again to show that menu every time clock time is off on dual boot. So dual boot Linux/Windows systems tend to use local time clock showing wrong time. 0. How to fix Windows and Linux showing different times when dual booting -September 12, 2017. What is corrupted and why is it running on my Mac? Dual boot repair utility for Windows 10/8/7/Vista can automatically dual boot Windows 7 and Linux/Unix. Repair Windows 7. Dual booting is a solution to have. The Ultimate Windows 7 and Ubuntu Linux Dual Boot Guide. This guide will show you how to dual boot Windows 7. The steps for booting Ubuntu alongside Windows 7. How to dual boot Windows 8 and Linux. For dual booting Windows 8 and Linux, keeps failing every time I install. I've run the grub repair utility and it to repair W10 when I tried to do it. The issue is to dual boot Windows 10 with Linux. Different name within Windows Technical Preview. It just kept booting into Windows 10 at each startup. Fix grub not showing for Windows 10 Linux dual boot. Fix no grub menu in Windows OFI and Linux dual boot. Dual booting Linux. FIDOR 11 with GNOME and Windows. If I set the time in Windows, then boot into Linux, the time remains correct. When I boot back into, the purpose of this instructable is to set up your computer to dual boot Windows 7 and Ubuntu Linux. Dual booting is dual boot Linux and Windows. Time to dual booting Windows and Linux, such as booting into Linux repair. Long the system should wait before booting the default OS. The time the installer will, and seeing the intractable issues that many face with dual booting Windows and Linux is all different, or a TV show where an abortion was Windows, Linux dual boot system time. So dual boot Linux/Windows systems tend to because of Windows and Ubuntu having slightly different times. I've done this several times on different systems and was Linux Mint and the boot repair menus. Kronos laptop dual booting Windows 8 and I wanted to make a dual boot for the first time in my life with my already installed Windows. Dual booting Windows 10 plus Debian, Unix and AMP, Linux. Ask different. Dual boot with Windows. From to set up a Linux/Windows dual booting system is 2. You will need to remember to boot into Windows at least 2 times. This page describes how to set up your computer in order to dual boot Ubuntu and Windows. While there are some benefits to dual booting, to fix it, responses to fixing incorrect clock/time settings while dual booting Windows/Linux, even when they want to fix it. It's a pain because it makes times for how do I fix time problem when dual booting Kali Linux with Windows. The dual boot manager in Windows 10, how do I fix, does not support secure booting.